David's here. I was stalling. I didn't want to start without you.
I was stalling on the road.
Oh, you're driving on the road slow, like I was just saying. Well, you heard me saying about driving on the road slow. You got to take it a little bit slower, but everything is fine. And that's a hera in Latin. That's right. Rule for life. Don't stop. You got to keep moving, but also go at a safe pace. Don't stop. You cannot stop. If you stop when it's icy, you might not start again.
When you get stuck behind the garbage truck full of garbage, say hi and go around.
When you get, David said it, I'm going to repeat it because he's not in the mic. When you get stuck behind the garbage truck full of garbage, go around. Very good. Excellent. Lesson in life. Lesson in driving. Lesson in life. Okay, who'd you bring with you this time?
Yud Alf Nissen, baby.
Oh, wait, this is Yud Alf Nissen. Your birthday's Yud Alf Nissen, Baruch Hashem. Oh, you have a bar mitzvah coming up? Amazing, Baruch Hashem. I'm going to make a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'shachar v'dvarim. Okay. Parshas Beshalach. Let's get into it. Page 139. Mit 20 Jahr zurück, Aachen shel Pesach, Ches Tzadik Reish Tov. Why do you think, that's a year, by the way, it's 1938. Why do you think the Rebbe writes in that order, Ches Tzadik Reish Tov? Normally we would say Tov Reish Tzadik Ches. You know why? Because it would be Tirtzach, which is loy tirtzach. You shouldn't do that. It's one of the things you shouldn't do. Anyway, so we changed the letters to make it more benign. It's a common thing. Okay. At any rate, 20 years previously, meaning the Sicha that Rebbe said was 1958, was actually Yud Shvat. It's a Yud Shvat Sicha. So 20 years previously, on Achron Shel Pesach, hat Kveit Kedusha Meir V'Chami Admor gerät in a Sicha benegeh der Haftarah von dem Shabbos. The Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about the Haftarah of this Shabbos. By the way, why would the Frierdiker Rebbe be speaking about the Haftarah of Shabbos Parshas Beshalach if the Sicha was Achron Shel Pesach? Want to guess? What's the connection between Beshalach and Achron Shel Pesach? Yitzias Mitzrayim, more specifically. Kriyas Yamsuf, very good. Nachas, okay. Kriyas Yamsuf actually took place on Shvi Shel Pesach. Achron Shel Pesach, Shvi Shel Pesach, same Yom Tov. Happened on Shvi Shel Pesach. So, but Beshalach is when we read it as a parsha. Okay. So the Frierdiker Rebbe was speaking. Hat dann erzählt in Namen von sein alte Seiden, dem Tzemach Tzedek, als sein Seide, der alte Rebbe, hat einmal gerät die Kasche. Frierdiker Rebbe said that his great-grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, said in the name of his grandfather, the alte Rebbe, a question. For was is die Haftarah von Shabbos Shira dafke v'tasher Devorah? Why is the Haftarah of Shabbos Shira, Shabbos Beshalach is also called Shabbos Shira? Because we read the Shira that the Yidden sang at Kriyas Yamsuf. Why is the Haftarah Shiras Devorah, the Song of Deborah? You know, the Haftarah always has to be similar in theme to the Parsha. So, song. All right, but there are other songs. A Shira von a Freu. Why is it a song of a woman? Devorah. Und nicht die Shira von David, and not the song of David. Wie das is the Haftarah von Shvi Shel Pesach, like on Shvi Shel Pesach. Take. You know that? Shvi Shel Pesach, the Haftarah is the song of David. So we should do the same thing on Beshalach. In Parshas Beshalach is die Shira von Mansbillen. In Parshas Beshalach you have a song of men. Oz Yashem Meisha Goimer, which is Moshe and the men singing. And euch, you also have is the Shira von Freuen, a song from women. V'tikach Miriam Goimer as hatoif b'yad v'tetzana. Miriam, the prophetess, she took the tambourine in her hand and she went out. Kol anashim Goimer bisupim uv'mechoiles, all the women with timbrels I don't even know what timbrels are. I just know it from this pasuk. I thought they were tambourines, but they always say timbrel. Well, Yisrael, can you Google image search a timbrel? Okay. V'tain lohem Miriam shiru Hashem ki goy, and Miriam led them in a responsive chant where they said to Hashem ki goy, Hashem is most exalted. So why is the Haftarah a woman's song? In other words, in the Parshas Beshalach, you have Moshe and the men singing. You have Miriam and the women singing. So you have the men and the women separately, but both. And then why do you have these songs? Excellent. Very good. You people who are watching from home, they can't tell, but what Yisrael just did is he turned on the little side screen in the Cheder Sheni, which is the cool place to hang out. When we designed the Soulwords house, we designed it for maximum comfort. We opened up the whole first floor to be like for events, for brengen, shiurim, but then we made this little side room for people who need to take it easy a little bit. Comfortable chairs, a little bit different lighting system so it can like take the lighting down a little bit. And that's like where I would hang out if I didn't have to sit behind this desk. Oh, by the way, since let me just wrap up the question. Then I want to just talk about something for a second. The question was, in Parshas Beshalach, we have Moshe and the men singing. We have Miriam and the women singing. The Haftarah could have been either men or women. Why specifically is the Haftarah the Song of Devorah a woman singing? Why specifically the women? Could have been men or women equally. All right. I just want to tell you something. So today, this morning, I get in my car and I see ice on my dashboard, like in the vents, in the air vents, and on the control panel, like globs of ice. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Did something happen, like, I don't know, inside the car, and something backed up and oozed out and froze? Like, where's liquid coming from inside of my car? And then I looked around a little bit more, and I remember that I always keep a spare can of seltzer in my cup holder in case I get thirsty. I want to show you this. Look at this. I did not do this. Nature did this. Oh, like good callback. David says last week we learned about the difference between the ches and the hay, that the hay has a little release valve on the top, a little window on the top. This did not have a window on the top, and it exploded. This is just blew clean off the top. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or something, you're not really getting the full excitement of this year. You got to come over to YouTube or go to soulwords.org and watch the video. But look at this. This just exploded because of it froze. Okay. Oh, I hear the ding. That's the bagels toasting. You guys don't know what you're missing over here. Soulwords House, 10:30 Sundays. Toasted bagels, lox, cream cheese, purple onion slices, purple specifically. We're Jewish, aren't we? Tomatoes, cucumbers. You don't know what you're missing. Cookies. Oh, my goodness. All right. I don't get to eat all this stuff because I have to teach, but I get good Keurig coffee. I use the Kirkland. I'll tell you sometime. We'll do a whole consumer tips class one time. I'll tell you why Kirkland is actually the best. Yeah. What? Sponsorships are available if you want to sponsor the shir. Sponsor the Gashmias or the Ruchnias or the Gashmias and the Ruchnias. Okay. So you hear the question? Why is the Haftarah of Shabbos Beshalach, or what we call Shabbos Shira, why is it a women's shir, Shiras Devorah, when it could have been a men or women shir? Of them hat der Alte Rebbe erzählt. No, we're still in the same first ice. Of them, we're on the top of the second column. Of them hat der Alte Rebbe erzählt, a langen Zieper gedruckt in der Eibe der Likkutei Sichos und hat ausgeführt, als wenn die Jiden seine Reise von Mitzrayim und gegangen in Jam in der Trinkenisch und gesagt Shira, haben die Freuen euch gesagt Shira, aber dazu noch besuppen Michaelis mit Simcha. Der Pfarr ist die Haftarah von Shabbos Shira, v'tosher Devorah, hakel hoya mina offer sfiras hamalchos. So the Frierdiker Rebbe continues, and this is in Likkutei Sichos, by the way. And he says that the Alter Rebbe concluded the reason the Haftarah is Shiras Devorah is because in Parshas Beshalach, Taki, you have men singing and women singing. They both sang, but the women sang with a certain advantage over the men, which is that they had instruments and they were more festive, they were more joyous, and that's why the women get the Haftarah, Shiras Devorah. And that line at the end, Hakel mina offer, that everything is from the dust or from the dirt, that is actually in the original. In when I was looking at this earlier, I was like, it seems like it needs more explanation. Just busts out that pasuk, Hakel hoya mina offer. But if you look in the original Likkutei Sichos, it's exactly how it says it. It doesn't explain it. So you have to already know Hakel hoya mina offer, which is a pasuk from Kehalis, from the wisdom of Solomon. And there are many meanings to it. One is that all life on earth comes from the soil. Because if you think about the food chain, whether you're a carnivore, an omnivore, a vegetarian, an herbivore, ultimately the food chain comes from vegetation. You know, you're eating something that ate something that ate something that ate vegetables, and the vegetation comes from the earth. So all the nutrition, all the energy on earth comes from the earth itself. Now, earth is the lowest thing. You know, it's like the bottom. And that's like the spheroids, and the 10 spheroids. Malchus is considered earth. Malchus is often compared to the ground. And Malchus is a feminine sphera. Malchus is receptive of all the other spheres, like femininity is a receptive function. Doesn't mean it's passive, God forbid. Actually takes what it's given and it expands upon it and upgrades it and delivers it. Turns around and delivers it in a incomparably upgraded fashion, just like you put a seed in the earth and the earth produces a whole fruit tree, let's say. Like they say, anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but only Hashem can count the apples in a seed. But all those infinite apples in each seed are only released through the earth. So that's what it means, Hakel mina offer, which means the advantage of Malchus, which means the advantage of femininity, that essentially all life comes through femininity. In every way, spiritually, biologically, emotionally, everything originates from the feminine energy, which is called offer, which is called the earth. And it's not denigrating to call it dirt. It's actually letting us understand the greatness of the dirt. Okay, so everything's from the earth, and the songs of the women were greater than the songs of the men because they brought instruments and they did it with greater simcha. Okay, Beis. In Flug is nicht verstandig, für was Tag ist die Shira, was es haben gesungen Moshe und Israel, die Mannsbillen nicht given mit der Simcha wie die Shira von Miriam und Kol Hanoshim die Freu. So now we have a new question, which is, okay, but why didn't the men sing with as much simcha as the women? In other words, our first question was, why is the Haftarah depicting a woman's song when it could have been a man or a woman? And we answered, because the women at the Yam Suf sang with greater joy. Okay, so but why did the women sing with greater joy at the Yam Suf, at the splitting of the sea? Okay. Nor der Tam of dem in Pashtus, weil beschas men bekommt der Sach on Horavanya und on Sar, kann man beschum Eufen nicht füllen dieselbe Simcha. Simple answer is when you achieve something without pain, no gain. So you don't have the same level of joy. Wie beschas men hat gelegt auf dem Groß mi und durchgegangen schwere Melchames, as compared to when you have exerted yourself greatly and had to battle Unlefum Zeide Agro, like we say, in accordance with the pain is the gain. Was größer es is given Frer die Yegia und Zar, als größer is der noch die Simcha. So however great, or the greater the pain was before, the greater the celebration will be after. Beschas, jeden haben gesungen, Shira der Fahr, was Pare mit die Mitzrim seinen, der trunken geworden in Yam, und sie seien der Reis von Goles Mitzrayim, haben Moshe Rabbeinu mit alle jüdische Männer nicht gekannt vielen dabei als Simcha, wie Miriam mit alle jüdische Frauen. Interesting statement. At the time when Pare and the Mitzrim were drowned in the sea, and the Yidden were freed from exile, and the Yidden sang, Moshe and the men could not sing with the same level of joy that Miriam and the women could sing. Why not? Now, we set a general rule that the greater the pain, the greater the ensuing joy after the resolution of the painful experience. So that's our hint. But why did the women sing with greater joy than the men? Warum das Schwerste von Goles Mitzrayim und die ärgste Gseres seien gekommen, nachdem wie Miriam ist geboren geworden und die schwerste Gsere ist gewesen, kol habena yilud hayir tashlichuhu. Because the most egregious part of Galus Mitzrayim, and the worst of the decrees, was, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago in Parshas Shmais. Shmais Beshalach. Okay, it's more than a couple of weeks ago. But, Shmais was the parsha that I had to make up after my mother's Shiva. Right. So we spoke about then the Gzeira of Kol HaBein HaYiloid. Every son who's born, throw him into the Nile. And we're going to revisit that whole thing. There's a lot of the stuff that we learned in Parshas Shmais that we're going to revisit here in this Sicha. But the worst of the decrees of the Egyptian exile was the infanticide, the killing of the babies. Chmon Litzlan. Alle Schwierigkeiten, was seine gewähnt früher, wenn jeden haben gearbeitet, bechemer, levenim, v'chol aveda v'sada, is kol avedasam asher avdu, v'hem befarech. All of the previous work they did with the building, with the bricks and the mortar and bricks, and toil in the field, and all of the backbreaking effort, seien nicht gekommen zu der Gzera von reinwarfen neu geborene Kinder in Teich. None of that came close to, as far as, how awful it was, the decree of throwing newborn babies into the river. Nachdem es doch euch gekommen, wie Chazal dir zählen, die Gzera, as Pare soll sich baden in die Blut von jüdische Kinder. And then after that was this gruesome decree where Pare would bathe in the blood of infants, Jewish infants. A Mutter lebt das als über mehr wie a Vater. And I'm sorry if this is sexist and if it offends anybody out there, but a woman experiences this more than a father. Just a fact. Der Vater ist euch beschaß men, ist Potter geworden von Paren, mit seinen Gseres, ist die Simcha von die jüdische Frauen gewesen, viel größer wie die Simcha von die Männer. Therefore, when we were finally freed from Parai, meaning when the Egyptian army was drowned at the Yam Suf, the women's joy was far greater than the men's. Okay? That's the simple answer. So we asked, why is the Haftarah a song of a woman, when in the Parsha you have men singing and women singing? Could have gone either way. And we said because the women had greater joy. They brought the tambourines. Why did the women have greater joy? Why? Because they had greater pain. Because the worst decree was against the babies. And it's just a fact. The women were the ones. Obviously, it affected the men as well. But the point is that a decree against children was something that was even more painful for the women than for the men, and therefore the relief and the joy they experienced when we were removed from that situation, so was proportionately greater as well. Okay. Gimel, top of second column of page 140. The ala sipurim von Torah. Als euch der Sippe von Yetzias Mitzrayim wegen der Shira mit der Simcha bis Suppim v'Mechelois von Miriam mit die jüdische Freuen seinen sie alle Ahera auf alle Deures euch auf unser Dar. Now, this is a general rule. We see this all the time in Likkutei Sichos, that Rebbe always insists that every story in Torah has eternal application. It is relevant to us. It's relevant in all times, in all generations, including our generation. Und das ist euch merumes in Posuk, v'teitzana kol anashim acharao, alle jüdische Freunde ad seif kol aderes gehen noch Mirimin und sagen Shir al Hashem ki goy sus v'rechvei rama v'yam. And this is what's hinted to in the verse when it says all of the women answered after Miriam. All of the women for all generations. What do you think? It just means the women who were there physically present? No. All of the Jewish women forever who will ever live answer after Miriam. Getlichkeit und Heiligkeit is goy ga'a. What does that mean? What did they sing? They said, Asher el Hashem ki goy ga, which means getlichkeit, godliness, and heiligkeit, and holiness, are goy ga, which means exceedingly exalted. Hoich was hecher ken nit geben. Higher, so high you can't get any higher. Und Sachen, was seien verkehrt von heiligkeit, was haben Milchome mit heiligkeit, sus verreichewei, and things that are antagonistic to holiness, meaning the symbolized by the Egyptian horse and rider, is Rama v'yam, thrown in the sea. Tif nidrik in yam, deep, deep in the sea. Nit stam nidrik, not regular deep, nor Rama v'yam, cast into the sea. Gor a starken vorf in yam, thrown harshly, hard, strong into the sea. Nidrik was nidriker ken nid sein, so low that you can't get any lower. So, Getlichkeit und Heiligkeit, godliness and holiness are higher than high can be, and sus verechave, the horse and the rider, which symbolize anything antagonistic to holiness, is lower than lower can be. All right. Dalet. We're almost, you got to get your finger on the trigger, Yisro. Okay. Men hot shein amol gerat, as die Gzera von Kol HaBeine Yilad HaYoeret HaShlichu ist die Nekuda von ihr Inhalt fran in jeden Dor und in jeder Medina, euch in unser Dor und in unser Medina. We already said, and I told you this before, Parshas Shmais, the Sicha from Likkutei Sichos Chelek Aleph, Parshas Shmais. If you didn't see it, I know we put it out a little bit late because I wasn't able to record it until I got up from Shiva. So not everyone was able to see it. But you should definitely check it out. And over there, it speaks at length, Parshas Shmais, Likkutei Sichos Chelek Aleph, about what the decree of casting the boys in the Nile really meant. I'm going to give you a very, very super brief synopsis right now, and then we're going to learn further, and you'll sort of pick it up from context what it spoke about over there. But basically, it said that the Nile was the Avodah Zarah of the Mitzrim. They worshipped it as an idol. Why? Because their parnasa, their sustenance, came from the Nile. Because Egypt had no precipitation, so everything was irrigated from canals that came from the overflow of the Nile River. So since their whole sustenance came from the Nile, that was what they worshipped. So throwing the Jewish boys into the Nile means the voice of Pharaoh in our generation, meaning the voice of trying to make Jews assimilate because of the pressures of parnasa, economic pressures. Throw your boy into the Nile means cast him into being acculturated so that he'll be able to make a living. In other words, we're going to speak about this at length here, but that's what it means. Casting him into the Nile means instead of raising him with the morals and the values and the eternal beliefs that have stood by our people for millennia, you get scared and you think that you need to turn him into a little cog in the machine for him to be able to make a living. And that's called casting a boy, God forbid, into the Nile. Okay. Beshas, yes, you ready? Beshas, es wird geboren a Yiddish kind, was der Yiddische Leben Seder is. When a Jewish boy is born, Jewish child is born, and the Seder in life, the order in life, is as bald wie ein Kind wird geboren, hebt men gleich angebene der Erziehung von Torah mitzvahs. Immediately when he's born, you start to educate him in Torah mitzvahs. Kommt zu gehen Pharaoh Melech Mitzrayim. So Pharaoh Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, comes and he says, and what is Pharaoh in our generation? Das heißt die Baalaboskeit von der Land. Baalaboskeit von der Land means, there's two ways to translate Baalaboskeit here. Baalabais literally means a homeowner. But Baalaboskeit von der Land could mean the authority of the land, meaning the cultural dominance that the society around you has. But also baalaboskeit has another connotation in Yiddish that's hard to bring across in English. A baalabos is like a swear word. Not a real swear word, but kind of. Because, well, what's so terrible about owning a home? It's good to own it. It doesn't mean a homeowner. It means, yeah, literally it does mean a homeowner. But it means somebody who, that's like how you describe him. He's into his home. That's what he's, hey, pick up your leaves from your lawn. You're lowering the property value in the neighborhood. That guy, homeowners association. Anyway, so baalaboskeit means someone who's like really into like very mundane material comforts, and that because what? For the wrong reason. Yeah, he's very into it. Well, you shouldn't be really into it at all. I guess you're saying if you have the right reasons, like. Yeah, for spirituality, right? But this, like a Talmud Chacham, has to be dressed nicely, and he should have a clean, nice house and clean, nice car, not exploding seltzer cans in his car. The sauce on the chicken wings. That's another callback. How many weeks ago was that? That was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Very good. Yeah, he's apathetic towards it, meaning it's okay if it's on there. He'll still eat it. He doesn't wipe it off. But okay, he won't send it back if they don't include it. You guys have to go back to Parshas Va'era to find out about the sauce on the chicken wings. I think that was when we were learning about the frogs. Yeah, it was about the frogs? Kaltkite? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Very good. All right. So, what were we talking about here? Oh, baalaboskeit. So the baalaboskeit von der Land. It means the authority, like the cultural authority of the society around you, but it also means like very like mundane, materialistic, consumerism. It implies all that. Okay, so the baalaboskeit von der Land, that's the Pharaoh, that's the modern day Pharaoh, is that sort of attitude. And what happens? Untainet, he argues with you. Es wird geborener Ingel, was mit der Zeit wird Chasana haben und darf sein der Zusteller von Parnossen Heus. This little Jewish boy is born. Now he's going to grow up and he's going to have to be the breadwinner for his family. Darf man ihm schon von Kindweis an reinwerfen in Teich, was geht Parnosse. So from his youth already, you have to throw him into the river, which is the source of a livelihood. Die ganze Speis und Parnasse von Mitzrayim is gewähnt abhängig von der Teich Nilus. That reminds us that the whole sustenance of the Egyptian economy came from the Nile. Soll sich tunken und sein der trunken in Teich, that he should be immersed and even drowned in the river. So the modern day Pharaoh is the voice that says, when you have a child, instead of immediately educating him in Jewish ways, no, you'll get to that later. First priority is you have to make sure you're setting him up to be able to make money. He's going to have pressures. He's going to have to support his family. You got to put him on the right path to make money. Was wird sein mit Torah mitzvahs? What's going to be with Torah mitzvahs? Of them, and for Pari answers and says, is voran Sunday. Sunday. Sonntag. By the way, I just want to give you a heads up. This Sikha has a ton of English, and the English that the Rebbe uses is hilarious because the Rebbe is like in this Sikha channeling the voice of the modern day Pare, which turns out, by the way, is usually like your neighbors and people who you trust, people in your like immediate sphere, and they're coming to you with bad ideas about how to raise your children. And so when the Rebbe is sort of like, I don't want to say mocking, but it is sort of mocking. It's funny. It is funny when the Rebbe is sort of imitating the voice of these arguments. So there's a lot of English sprinkled in, and it's pretty funny. Anyways, you'll see. So you're going to say, you got to raise your kid to make a living. Well, what about Judaism? For that, there's Sunday. Was Sunday is der Bank geschlossen, die Clayton geschlossen, und so weiter. Because on Sunday, the banks are closed, the stores are closed. Die Nacht früher darf man schleppen dem Kind in movie und all the Jahren. The night before, you have to take the kid to the movies and similar. Meaning Saturday night. You got to. You're normal American. How's he going to be normal American? It's the weekend. You got to bring him to the movies Saturday night. Aber in the free, but then the next morning, Sunday morning, so wie die Eltern willen schlafen bis 12 Uhr, because the parents want to sleep till 12 p.m., art sie nicht, als der Kind wird gehen in Sunday school und lernen dorten. It doesn't bother the parents if the kid goes to Sunday school and learns over there. To the contrary, they like it. The kid will go to Sunday school, the parents can sleep till noon. Und nicht nur singen und tanzen, nor afilu ivri und chumash. And in Sunday school, what is he going to learn? Not just singing and dancing. He'll even learn some Hebrew and some chumash. Zij, die Älteren, wollen können ruhig schlafen und sein gar tief versunken in Schlafberuchnis. Wow, poetic. The parents can sleep soundly and spiritually sleep as well, meaning they're literally sleeping. They're sleeping all Sunday morning while their kid is at Sunday school, and spiritually they're sleeping, meaning they're completely checked out of their child's education. Okay. Der noch eins Eger, noch halben Tag. Then, at 1 p.m., we're describing this American Jewish household. Then at 1 p.m., after half of the day is gone, vet men hodeven dem Kind mit television. Then you're going to raise the child with television. With movies. Look at this. What is this? Baseball. Mit dem Teich Nilos, which is all... This is all Nilos. This is all the Nile River. Was Leut ezer Meinung get Parnassa, because according to the way the parents are thinking, to the mentality they've adopted, this will give Parnassa. In other words, even baseball is like, that's part of giving the kid an edge that he'll be a normal American, he'll be able to work, and he'll be able to make a living. It's all part of the whole fear. Anstatt dem, was man darf dem Kind verbinden, bald von Kindweis an mit dem Eibishter, instead of connecting the child immediately from his youth to Hashem, was speist die ganze Welt betuvei, bechen v'chesed rachmim, in an Eifen von Kavod and Menucha, which Hashem is the one actually, like we say in Birkas HaMazon, Hashem sustains us, bechen v'chesed v'rachmim. Hashem is the one who sustains the whole world. Gracefully and kindly and mercifully and with honor and with tranquility. So instead of if you really cared about his Parnassa, you would connect him to Hashem, because Hashem is the source of Parnassa. But instead of doing that, was nur das verbindet sich mit dem Eibishtin, is the einzige Weg von a Yidden zu Parnassa, which the reality is the only way to really make Parnassa is to be connected to Hashem, but they don't do that. I think if it didn't explicitly mention football, we're okay. All right. Yeah. Where the okay. Warum aber viele bei Goyim ist sehr Parnasse abhängig von Teichnilus Gesetzen, ist aber bei Jeden steht, wie atmet wegen Baweile kechem Chaim Kulchem Ayem. Durch dem, was Jeden verbinden sich mit dem Ebersten, durch dem leben sie. Und durch dem haben sie euch Parnasse. Warum man de Yav Chai, Yav Mezayne. Okay. I just want to back up here. Even if it were to be argued, I think this is a very important line to unpack, especially because we're learning in a public forum. And I think, although this particular class, we're reading Yiddish text and it's pretty advanced learning, but we have all types of people who come and listen, including non-Jews. So I just want to point something out. The Rebbe says here, even if it were to be argued that for a non-Jew, that his livelihood was determined by the Nile River. For a Jew, we have the clear statement, you who cleave to the Lord your God are alive today. So if you want livelihood, it's not through the natural means, it's actually through spiritual connection. I think it's interesting because this phrasing leaves open an interpretation, which I think is actually something that could be very well received in today's day and age. Even if it were to be argued that a non-Jew will find their sustenance through natural means, a Jew surely finds their sustenance through supernatural means. And what that means, or the implication is, even a non-Jew really, their sustenance really comes through supernatural means. With a Jew, it's even more overtly true. Look, Jewish survival on the macro level, just talking about the Jewish people, is clearly a miracle. There's no natural explanation for how we're still here. If persecution didn't get rid of us, at least some type of natural event. I mean, you can't have a tiny minority, especially displaced from their homeland for centuries, millennia, and then to be the object of persecution. Statistically, you cannot maintain that for millennia. It's just not possible. The whole thing is miraculous. So clearly, for Jewish people, our survival is not through natural means, it's through supernatural means. But, and you might argue, well, for the rest of the world, Parnasa, livelihood, comes through natural means. Okay, fine, you could argue that. But the truth is, I mean, at least the way that Ebba phrases it leaves room for this argument. For non-Jews also, their sustenance has not come through natural means. And by the way, I've seen that time and again. Non-Jews who are spiritually minded and who prioritize their relationship with God before what would normally be considered the rules of the game, what you have to do to make a living, I've seen how it works very, very well for them spiritually and materially, that they retain their principles, and in the end, they do very well materially. I've seen it time and time again. So, again, even if the non-Jewish world were to argue that this is how it has to be done, that you have to think about practical stuff before spirituality. For the Jews, for sure, we think about spirituality before practicality. And the truth is, the whole world should really operate this way. Okay? All right. So, we connect to Hashem, that's the source of Parnasa. Durch dem leben sie, that's how we live. Durch dem haben sie euch Parnasa, that's how we get Parnasa. Warum man de Yav Chai, Yav Mezayne, because he who gives life will give sustenance. Der Eibishter of us, get leben, get euch a Parnasa, im mit sein Freu und Kinder. The same Hashem who gives life, right? We can't create life. Life is a miracle. Okay, the same Hashem who creates life also creates the sustenance to maintain that life. Your life and the life of your family. Is anstatt them, but instead of, so these parents who have been brainwashed, instead of following the real path of connection to Hashem and understanding that that is the source of livelihood. Instead of that, nimmt man die Kinder und man warft sie rein in Teich. They take the kids and throw them in the river. Was reißt sie ab, nicht nur von dem ruchnistigen Leben, nur euch von Leben in einfachen Sinn. Warum, wie gesagt, Frère, die einzige Weg, was Jeden haben auf Leben und Parnasse, ist durch verbinden sich mit einem Eibischten. They tear this kid away not only from spiritual life, but also from material sustenance as well, because as we just explained, our path to material sustenance is through our spiritual connection. So they end up undermining him in both senses. Okay, hey, ice hey. Yisrael, you have your finger on the trigger? Okay, hey. Und so wie in dem Goles, was ist gewesen, Farmaten Teira, was das ist Goles, Mitzrayim, seien die alle Friedeker Geseres nicht gekommen zu der Gesere von Kolabena Yiloida Yere Tashlicho, just like in Mitzrayim. That the worst of all the decrees, none of the decrees even came close. The worst of all the decrees was throw the boys in the river. So too in our current exile, this is a very strong statement if you actually think about the implications of it. I'm going to say it slowly. Was der Yetzirah macht auf der erwachsene Menschen zu der Gzera, was der Yetzirah macht auf kleine Kinder. None of the decrees that the evil inclination makes against adults come close to the severity of what the evil inclination tries to do with children. Okay, so we're saying in this gullus, this current gullus, you think about how messed up the plans of the Yetzirah are, how he tries to undermine and mess up people's lives. And you know what? All that he does with adults doesn't even come close to what he tries to do to children by undermining their education. That's like the worst of the worst as far as the severity of gullus. B'shas aber, oh, you flipped it already, good. Oh, you didn't? Oh, yeah, okay. We're the very bottom. Okay, let's do it. Let's try to time it perfectly. B'shas, but by the people watching the video, they wonder, why are you looking in that direction? Because that's where my monitor is, where I can see the giant thing. I have my book right here, but I have the text on the screen right there. Okay. B'shas aber ment wird nit nispal von Parin. Very good. When you're not intimidated, however, by Parin. Now I gotta flip my real page. Men werden nit nispal von die gute Freund, which means you're not intimidated by the good friends. You know who the good friends are? Good friends are other Jewish people who are trying to give you advice. Today they are mommy groups and WhatsApp chats and Facebook groups, and people say, I heard a podcast. I don't want to tell you what it said, right? And they're trying to give you advice. So the good friends. So you shouldn't be nispal from pare, which means the good friends. Call them good friends pare. They're not actual pares, but they're acting Pharaoh-like because they're channeling Pharaoh. Von der Schachente, von next door. Yeah, the Rebbe says here, next door. Next door. The next door neighbor was sie teinet, and she tines, she argues. So you're not supposed to be in this Paul from pare. Now, don't be intimidated. Don't listen. Don't pay any mind to pare, which means when the next door neighbor comes over and she starts arguing, wie nimmst du dein Kind und schickst dem in a cheder? How can you take your child and send him in a cheder, a Jewish school, in a yeshiva, in a advanced Jewish school? Was man lernt dort in a Torah, was is alt, 3 mit a halb tausend Jahre, where they learn a Torah that's 3,500 years old. A Torah, was is gegeben geworden im Midbar Shmama desert. A Torah that was given in a barren wilderness, desert, and a desert. You're going to go and learn. You're going to take your precious child and educate him with a bunch of stuff that's from 3,500 years old from people living in a desert. Und in a Zeit, was ist noch nicht gewesen, kein Radio. In a time when they didn't yet have radio. Kein telephone, not a telephone. Und a paper in die Früh zu Meide Ani is euch nicht gewesen. And they didn't even have the morning paper that you're supposed to read at Meide Ani time. Now it's called reach for your phone at Meide Ani time. But you guys don't know how much of a cultural stranglehold the newspaper had. They used to have paper boys. I don't think this exists anymore, but it was a very common job for like teenagers or even younger than teenagers. You go at like 4 a.m, you pick up the newspaper, hot off the presses, literally, it would still be warm from the printing press, and then they would ride around on their bike and deliver the paper before dawn. So the guys going to work, commuting from the suburbs, they're backing out of their driveway at 6 a.m. So the paper would be there in the driveway. And that was like a big thing, the morning paper. Because remember, this is like before the internet. So it wasn't what we have now, the 24-hour news cycle. It was, you had to wait a day to get the news. So that was like a big thing. Got to get the morning paper. How are you going to be a normal person if you didn't read the morning paper? And then I'm telling you guys, you don't even relate to this, but which paper you got was also like kind of like an affiliation type of thing. It was a very, like, there was a feeling of like tribalism. Like, I know growing up in Chicago, the Chicago Tribune or the Chicago Sun-Times, like which paper you got. And then the comic section would have different comics syndicated. So like if you wanted like Peanuts, then it had to be the Tribune, but Ziggy was in the Sun-Times. I'm just telling you. What? Bruce told you a story? Bruce Backman, the most interesting person on earth. He's always full of information. What did Bruce tell you? Yeah. Yeah, in Europe, at the height of the war. Oh, I shouldn't repeat it? Is it? Well, we're live right now. So, you're going to say it and I shouldn't? But if there's too much silence, people will click away. Right, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Basically, Yisrael told a story that Bruce Backman told him where a guy was traumatized from the Holocaust, and when he came to America, he stayed religious, but he had a condition that he'll only daven in a shul where the rabbi read the newspaper every morning. Right, because he figured that was like considered, okay, whatever. Yeah, I got it. Okay. All right. So at any rate, this next door neighbor is harassing you and saying, how can you send your kid to Cheder, a yeshiva, and he's going to learn this old Torah from the desert? And the Torah was given before they had the radio, and they didn't even have the Sunday, not the Sunday paper, but the morning paper. The Sunday paper was like the big edition, and then they had the daily paper every day. All right. Demo teinet sie, hat man gekannt, angehen mit der Erziehung. Then, in those times, before they had all the modern conveniences that we have, okay, you could get away with it. Aber now, beschaß mir gefinden sich in 20th century. 20th century. You know what that is? 20th century. The 20th century. The 1900s is the 20th century. Und wir haben sicher gewesen zu Progress. And we've merited progress. Und zu culture. And culture. I told you the English words here are really rich. It's that it can be nicht sein old-fashioned. So now you can't be old-fashioned. Noch mehr amol tut sich on Parei in a kleid von kedusha und tainet. Now sometimes Parei dresses up in holy robes. See, this is where Parei is coming to you in a clearly antagonistic attitude toward religion. Sometimes he comes to you seeming like he's pro-religion. And he says like this. Yeah. Azoi, wie du willst, als dein Kind soll geben Sachgeld auf Tzedakah bechlal und auf Yeshivas befrat. You want your child to be able to give a lot of tzedakah in general, and especially to the yeshivas. Darfst du doch sehen, als soll sein a Gvir. So you have to make sure he'll grow up and become a Gvir. He'll be rich. To warf him rein in Teich von Parnassa. So throw him into the river of livelihood. Machem azoi wie alle Johns und Michaels. Make him like all the Johns and Michaels. Asher leila vayahema, who are not devoted to Hashem. Und demol kannst du haben a Hoffnung, as wird geben Geld auf Yeshivas und Chadarim. Then you're going to have a hope that maybe he'll give money to the Yeshivas and the Chadarim. So you do it for the sake, do it for the Yeshivas. You gotta make sure your kid is secularized so he can become rich and support the yeshivas. It's all for the yeshivas. Lepeil Zetman, as nur Parei hat Parnasse davon. Jeden haben davon gar nicht. Now, in actuality, you see, only Parei is making money on this scam. The Yidden have nothing from this. Darf man wissen dem Ames, you have to know the truth. Als die Gzere kommt von demselben Parei, nur azoi, wie weiß doch, als Beschas wird kommen zu gehen und heißen Tonnen Aveda, wird man ihm nicht folgen. It's the same Parei. It's just that Parei changed his strategy, because he knows if he's going to come and tell you to sin, you're not going to listen. Tut sich on in a seideke Suppetze, so he puts on a silk frock und sagt, als hat der große Yeshiva, and he says, I have a big yeshiva, und darf of ihr Geld, and the yeshiva needs money. Der Pfarrer soll man reingeben die Kinder in public school, and that's why you got to put your kid in public school, and in Sunday school, and he'll learn Yiddishkeit on Sunday, when the parents are sleeping till 12. Vet demol kennen bauen a great yeshiva for malachim, and then we'll build a big yeshiva for whom? For angels. It's a joke. Why are we building the school for angels? Because if all the kids are going to public school to be able to pay for the yeshiva, then who's going to the yeshiva? I guess the yeshiva's for angels. What? Beschas men chapt sich bezeitens, als die Eize stammt von Parei. Von dem klugen Kind, was sagt, hoven es chakmalei, pen jirba kwekeris admur schlita hifsik va amr, aber der Emes ist, als kein jirba ve kein jifreits. Von dem, was will, als soll nicht bleiben, kein sorry do palle trachmonolatzan, von Yiddishkeit, von jiddische Neshamas und durch dem euch nicht von jiddische Gufim. But when you realize that this whole argument is coming from Parei, which is the clever one, the Yetzer Hara is called the clever one, who says, Parei literally said, let's act cleverly with the Jews, lest they multiply. And then the Sikha says in parentheses that the Rebbe, when he said, Pen Yirbe, which is Parei's fear, the Jews, lest they multiply, the Rebbe said the next words of the verse, which is, despite Parei's trying to act cleverly to stave off Jewish growth, nevertheless, kein yirba v'chein yifreitz, nevertheless, they grew and they spread out. So the Rebbe basically said, he inserted that positive part, in spite of their attempt to stifle our growth, nevertheless, we'll grow. So Parei wants to stave off the growth of the Jews, that there should be no remnant of Yiddishkeit or of Yidden, not of Jewish souls, and not Jewish bodies. Und man nimmt sich mit der jiddische Starkheit auf Mevalta sein Gzera. But you try to nullify this decree with Jewish strength Men hört auf zu suchen Tachlisim zu finden für. You stop looking for. Tachlisim means here like worrying about what's going to be in the end, meaning, like we said, worrying about, well, what kind of a job is he going to have? You don't do that when a kid is 5 years old. Zu 7 Jahr at 7 years old. Zu 13 Jahr, 13 years old. Und zu 18 Jahr, not even when he's 18. Not even when he's 18. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Men hat amuna und betochen in dem Eibishten. You have faith and you have trust in Hashem. Because there are many thoughts in the heart of man. Und sie bringen kein Nutzen nicht. They don't bring any utility. Weil sie seine Rabbis und nicht kein Yechidish Aleilam. Okay, I gotta stop and explain this. Rabbis machshavas belev ish is a lashon pasuk from Mishlei, from King Solomon's Proverbs. There are many thoughts in the heart of man, which basically means people have a lot of big ideas. Mensch tracht, Gott lacht, like we say in Yiddish. Man thinks and God laughs. People have a lot of plans. Rabbis means a lot, many. They have a lot of plans. But in the end, it's Hashem's plan that prevails. So the Rebbe also then brings out a double meaning here. Rabbis, many, means multiplicity, as opposed to what? Yochid, oneness, unity. In Chassidus, we speak a lot about the idea of Yochid and Rabbim. Yochid, the oneness, the unity, means the real, true, absolute existence of Eined Milvade, that there's nothing but Hashem. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, not just that there's one God, but there's one existence. There's only one true reality. And Rabbim means the appearance of other things. That you look around, you see all the people, places, and things, and you start to attribute ontological independence to them. It's a fancy philosophical term for it. You think that they have some type of autonomy. They exist on their own, which is not real. So the rabbis machshaves means not just many thoughts, but thoughts that stem from a mentality that gives credence to all the multiplicity in the world and doesn't realize that it's all really just oneness. It's all Eined Milvade. There's nothing but Hashem. You could ask, okay, so now you were getting into the granular question of how much Limudei Chayil do you need? And, the Rebbe had schools that did teach Limudei Chayil. And, you can get into a practical discussion, okay, how much of it and how little. Clearly, the Rebbe's ideal was you don't need it at all. But in practice, you don't see that the Rebbe completely shut it down. There was some level of Limudei Chayil that was allowed in certain moistais. So, I think it's one of those classic things. B'tochen nishtadlus is a relative thing, and depends on the person, depends on the situation, depends on their expectations, depends on how much b'tochen they're able to have. You can't fake b'tochen. It's got to be real. But clearly the preference, the ideal, is don't worry about it at all. Okay. So, person has rabbis machshavos, thoughts that stem from this belief in giving too much credence to the multiplicity of creation. Von rabbis machshavos belev ish, und sie bringen kein Nutzen nicht. I said that, weil sie seien rabbis und nicht kein Yochid Yechidish Shel Olam. Yeah, we said that. Und vatzas Hashem hisokum. In the end, Hashem's plan will prevail. He lashon Yochid, which is again oneness. Warum der Eibishter is a baalabos, nit nor auf den Himmel, nor euch auf der Erde. Hashem is the boss, not just of heaven, but of earth. In dem Ort, wo sie gefindt sich mit ihr Mann und mit ihrer Kinder. In the place where she, now we're going back to the woman, is with her husband and her children. Okay, we're going to finish up this ice, and I see you guys getting dressed for you're going to go make snowmen, I'm assuming. Okay. Is wissendig das ist nicht nur, was sie wird nicht ins Paul von ihr Schachente, but what this Jewish woman is going to know the truth about what really works in life. She's not going to be intimidated by the arguments of the next door neighbor lady. Nor adrabe sie peilt noch auf ihr Schachente. In fact, this Jewish mother is not only not going to listen to the the neighbor, she's going to influence her neighbor. That the neighbor lady should also save her children from Pharaoh's hands. Und man stellt auf zähnliche Tausende jüdische Kinder, was sollen gehen an Kegen Mashiach zed Kinder beim Herrn Yomenu, and we're going to raise tens of thousands of Jewish children who will go out to greet Mashiach. So here we're going back to the beginning of the Sikha where we said, why were the women more joyous celebrating Kriyas Yamsuf? Because they had more of the brunt of the difficulties. So too in this Galus, the women, the main target of the Yetzer Hara against Jewish continuity is to undermine Jewish education of children. That affects women more, so women proportionately experience greater joy in overcoming that. Okay, we're on Eis Vav, which is on the first column of page 143. Azoi wie damals Beschasmen ist Pater geworden von Parein. In die Zeiten von Moshe Rabbeinu mit Mirimen ist die Simcha von die Frauen gewesen viel größer wie die Simcha von die Männer, warum euch die Gzera haben die Mutters übergelebt, mehr wie die Vaters. Dieselbe Sache ist euch jetzt als sei die Gzera von Parein. Und bemeile euch die Simcha, welche kommt Beschasmen, wer Pater von die Gzera, feeling sich mehr by the Yiddish Frauen. So like I just said, just like when the Yidden were freed from Paray in the times of Moshe and Miriam, the women had greater joy than the men because they had to endure more the cruelty of the Gzeda. So too, in the present, the Paray's decrees of the present, the women have a greater feeling of joy than the men. Dem gresten Teil von dem Tag, practically speaking, listen, most of the day gefindt sich doch der Mann nicht in Haus. The man is not home. Und viele die Zeit, was is in Haus, and even the time when he is home, euch demalt geht sich nicht ab, so viel mit der Erziehung von die Kinder wie die Frau. He's not as actively involved in the children's upbringing as the woman. Just a reality. Sorry. I know there's an exception. You don't have to comment. Actually, comment. It's good for the algorithm, but you don't have to comment. Say, my husband's a stay-at-home father. I know. That's the exception. Okay. Da kegen die jüdische Frau, sie hat Milchome mit Parein, but the woman, she, in contrast, is the one she's on the front line fighting Paray. Wie verstellt soll nicht sein, even if it's a really hidden Paray. Like we said before, your Jewish neighbor lady who's trying to give you good advice, which is really bad advice. Und mit was Pharaoh Form gute Freundschaft, soll nicht kommen zu ihr, notwithstanding the form that this Paray takes, which is, he takes the form of a good friend. Und dann ist sicher, als sie ist Menazech und Vierteus, als Hawaii, Torah und Jiddischkeit ist Goi und das verkehrt zu Sverechwe, Rama V'yam. And she makes sure, thanks for coming, have fun, and drive safely. And don't get caught behind any garbage trucks. Just go right by it. She, the Jewish woman, makes sure that Havaya Goiga, that Havaya, Hashem, meaning Torah and Yiddishkeit, are highly exalted. And Sus Verechave, the horse and its rider, meaning that which is antagonistic to Yiddishkeit, Rama V'yam, gets thrown in the sea. Und das führt sich aus mit Simcha, and she does this with joy, besupim mechayles, with tambourines and dancing. Und man geht über zu Parshas Yisrael, and then from Beshalach you go to Yisrael, the Parsha von Kabbalah Torah. What's Yisrael? The Parsha where we receive the Torah. What men can sagen, because then we can truly say, our children will be our guarantors. Remember, the Torah was only given with a guarantor. Like when you're given a loan, you have to have a guarantor. And we offered as guarantors our forefathers and our prophets and our elders. And finally, Hashem only accepted our children will be our guarantors, that we will keep the Torah and maintain it. So when the Jewish woman stands up against the parai in any form that it may manifest itself, then we're ready for the next week's parsha, which is Yisrael, to receive the Torah, because we're ready to say our children will be our guarantors. Okay, Zion. Damit wird man euch verstehen, was es steht in Medrash Tanchuma auf den Pasuk v'tan lohem Miriam, was in Flug ist nicht verstandig der Lashon lohem, was das ist a Lashon Zacher zu freuen, hat doch gedarf sagen lohen. Now we're going to understand what says in Medrash Tanchuma about the verse v'tan lohem with a mem, shlos mem, Miriam. We said before, V'tain Lahem means she led them in a responsive chant. Lahem means masculine. It should have said Lahen, feminine, because she was leading the women in a responsive chant. But it says Lahem, which means masculine. Like she was leading a women's choir, not a men's choir. So why does it use the masculine pronoun? That's the question that the Medrash Tanchuma asks. Der zählt darauf dem in Medrash, so the Medrash says about this, als Beschas jeden seinen durchgegangen dem Yam und gesagt Shira, haben die Malachim damals euch gewollt sagen Shira. When the Yidden crossed the sea and they wanted to sing, the angels came and said, we also want to sing. Hat der Rebischter gesagt zu die Malachim, Hashem told the angels, Freier wollen Yidden sagen Shira und erst dann wird ihr sagen Shira. First let the Jews sing, then you can sing. Der klärt der Medrash dem Lashon Yashir Meishe, nicht Shar Lashon, aber nur Yashir Lashon Zivui, warum das ist gewähnt, Zivui von dem Eibishten, Yashir Meishe von Israel und der noch die Malachim. And that's how the Medrash explains why to say as Yashir Meishe will sing and not Shar, he did sing, past tense, because the future tense can also be imperative, a command. It was a command. Hey, you guys, first you sing, Moshe and the men, sing. Do it now, because the Malachim are waiting, they're going to sing next. Noch dem Beschas Miriam mit die Freuen haben gesagt Shira. Now after that, the women, Miriam and the women, were going to sing, haben die Malachim wieder geteinet. So the Malachim will go, hold on, can we get in here? Let's squeeze in. The men sang already, now we would like to sing. Van Meisje ben Israel haben wir abgetrotten dem Weg. Aber jetzt sollen wir sagen, Shira, fahr die Freund. When it came to the men, so we deferred. But now we want to get in here before the women sing. Leut ein day in Medrash hat men sie noch gegeben. Now, according to one opinion in Medrash, they were granted their request. Aber Leut that say today, but in another opinion in the Medrash, Viertais, it continues, and it says, der Medrash, as euch die Shira von die Freuen is given far die Shira von die Malachim, that the women also sang before the angels. Aber euch Leuten sal gedeiht doch von Medrash, als die Malachim haben nicht gewahrt auf der Shira von die Freuen, haben aber die Malachim nicht gekannt, sagen Shira bis Miriam hat sie gegeben Rishus. But even according to the initial opinion of the Medrash, that the angels did not wait for the women, the angels couldn't sing until Miriam at least gave permission. She had to first give permission. Und das ist V'tain Lohem, Miriam. That's why it says V'tain Lohem, the masculine. Because Miriam allowed the angels to sing. So it was as if she was like leading them in singing, sort of. Lashon Zacher. Lohem, Lashon Zacher. Das meint der Schuss, was Miriam hat gegeben zu die Malachim auf Sagen Shira. That means the permission that Miriam gave. Seht mir davon euch die Greiskeit von der Shira von die Freuen, als das rührt an nicht nur in Elamis Hatachtedim, nur euch in Elamis Elyenim. From this we see that the Jewish women's song had an effect not only on the lower worlds, the physical world, but also in the highest worlds, in the spiritual planes. Zer Shira kommt noch freier und hecher von Shiras HaMalachim, that the women's song comes before and is even higher than the song of the angels. Okay, Ches. This is the last chapter of this Sikha. Ches. Das eben Gesagte ist a Hera zu jeder Jeden. Es nicht da, was zu schrecken sich, nicht vor Parein, nicht vor Nilos und nicht vor die Gzeres. This is all a teaching for every Jew. There's nothing to fear from Pharaoh and the Nile and the decrees. If you go with true Jewish strength, kann man sich gefinden in Mitzrayim. You may be in Egypt, und soll dorten sein Melch Mitzrayim, and there may be a Pharaoh mit Alexadus, and he may be making laws. Yeah, could happen. God forbid. Und von deswegen, but nevertheless, hat es klar nicht zu tun zu seine Kinder. It has nothing to do with your kids. Ignore it. Ignore it. Wird führen seine Kinder in der Torah. You will continue to lead your children in the Torah way. Was das ist die Weg, was es bringt sie zum Leben. That's the way to actually give them a real life, not just a spiritual life, but even, like we said before, a material life. Nicht nur Leben in Elam Haba, nor Eich Leben in Elam Hazeh. That not only they should have life in the world to come, but also life in this world. That's the formula. Wird führen die Kinder in dem Weg, was sie wollen sagen, ze keli van veo lekei avi varamenuhu. You're going to raise your children in such a way that they will say, like the children at the splitting of the sea, this is my God, and I will exalt him or glorify him, the God of my father, and I will exalt him. Meaning, God of my father, meaning the parents raised the child the proper way. Ze wollen gehen in demselben Weg. They're going to go in the same way. In welche es gehen die Eltern that the parents went. In other words, Jewish continuity. The children will not be an end to the links in the chain. They will continue. Was das ist doch der emisser Nachas, was es kann sein von Kinder, and that is the true Nachas that there can be with children, as the children follow and continue in the path of the parents. Und demolt is wie man sagt weiter in der Shira, Tivieme, Visite Eme, Bahanachalosecha. Then, like we say further in the song, that you, Hashem, will bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. As men is Zeiche zu binyan Beis Hamikdash Ashlish b'meher v'yameina, which means that we will merit the building of the third temple speedily in our days. Und noch mehr, and furthermore, wie sagt in Medrash Lamaratoch Hibasum Shel Yisrael Lifnei Amakim. This teaches us the preciousness of the Jewish people before Hashem. As der Eibishter hat nicht gewahrt auf ein Tiviyem Universitime Bahanachalosch, was das ist der Beis Hamikdash Beis Olamim. Hashem did not wait for you will bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. He did not wait until the Beis Hamikdash could be built in Yerushalayim. Nor seindig noch in Midbar. Hat gesagt, already while they were still in the desert. Hashem said, make me a sanctuary and I'll dwell within it. He could have waited until they settled into the land and then they would build a Beis Hamikdash. No. Even when they were traveling in the desert, they were nomads for those 40 years. They had the Mishkan. And similarly now, when we're in this liminal state. I ever spoke about liminality here this year? I speak about it in other places. And people who are listening on or watching on YouTube, I'm sure you'll check out my other videos. I had a whole thing about nostalgia and memories and why we idealize the past. And I spoke about liminality, about intermediate phases in life where we feel unstable. So the midbar is the archetypical liminal space. Liminal means an in-between phase. Nicht dahin, nicht daher. So even now, when we're in this liminal space, as die bissel gezelte Tag was seinen geblieben bis Mashiach, in these few days remaining until Mashiach comes, Ist durch dem, was man wird nicht nispol werden von den Gzeres und man wird aufstellen sehr Berachawaya. We're going to not be intimidated by any of the decrees. And we're going to raise children who are blessed by Hashem. So even though we're still in Galus, we're going to build a mikdash. We're going to build a sanctuary for Hashem. As the Eibishter vet ruin in yeder Yiddische hoys, which means Hashem will dwell in every Jewish home. Yes. Und wie bald, as Hashem Yisbarach ruht dort, and since Hashem dwells there in every Jewish home, is doch selbstverständlich, it is understood, self-understood. As dort wird sein Parnasse Barachava, that you're going to also have ample sustenance. If Hashem's dwelling there, then there's going to be all the good stuff. Gesund, also health, Barachava, ample health. Und emes nachas von Kinder, und Kindskinder, ledig Yom V'Shalom Tevis. And real true nachas from your children and your children's children for length of days and good years. Okay. That was from Yud Shvat Tafshin Chai. Let's take a breath. How you doing, Yisrael? You have a question? Yeah. Do I want to run the screen while you go get salt? Where are you going to get salt? You're going to go Home Depot? So we have a paved sidewalk. Yeah, so we don't get sued. Okay, so how do I run the screen? You'll bring that laptop up here? Okay, so Yisrael's going to go get salt, rock salt, for, yeah, hold on. So I got two laptops here. People can't even see my laptops here. Yeah, show them. I want them to see. What are you doing? Back, what? Oh, the side camera? Okay, look at this incredible setup that we have over here. This is what all the people who are donors to SoulWords should know. This is what you funded. This is this incredible operation. This is like NASA. This is basically we could launch a space shuttle over here. Okay, so and by the way, Yisrael, look at this infinity, endless loop we got over here. Can you look at the camera? Look at that, endless Yisraels. Okay, let's both look at the camera at the same time. That is trippy. Okay. And it was, look, I got two laptops. This is for the live stream. This is going into the YouTube. This is for the Sicha. Okay. Yeah, all right. Put it back at the regular camera. All right, fine. So yeah, I will advance the pages. Oh, it's not the up and down, it's the right and left? Okay, all right. All right, you're going to go get salt. Okay, great. Go get salt. Thank you. NaCl. Sodium chloride. And I want to say, I'm very proud that my son doesn't know what sodium chloride is. It must mean that I educated you only in pure Torah. That's called Taras HaKodesh. NaCl, sodium chloride. See you soon. Okay. What? Text? Test. Oh, test. 9. Yes. Okay. I'm not even sure that the stuff that we put out on the driveway is NaCl. Table salt is NaCl. By the way, you know about the two chemists walk into a bar, and the bartender says, "What would you like?" So the first chemist says, H2O. The second chemist says, "I'll have H2O too." And the bartender served them, and the second chemist died. You get it? H2O is water. H2O, comma, 2 also is what the second chemist meant, but the bartender thought he meant H2O2. And that extra oxygen there is not water. It's, what is it? Hydraulic acid? Could somebody Google it and write it in the chat? H2O2. I think it's hydraulic acid. 1 second. H2. Oh, it's hydrogen peroxide? Why do I think it's hydraulic? Well, it's hydrogen peroxide. What's hydraulic acid? There's no I don't know. H2O2. It's hydrogen peroxide, but it's not like the hydrogen peroxide in those brown bottles in your medicine cabinet, which is like watered down to like 1%. It's pure 100% hydrogen peroxide. You don't want to drink it. Why did I think the punchline was H2SO4? Why did I think H2SO4 is sulfuric acid? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Anywho, should we continue? Let's continue. Tess. Wenn die Jeden seinen, which is a new sicha, okay? And this is from Yud Shvat Tavshin Tes Zayin. It's also Yud Shvat sicha. Okay. Wenn die Jeden seien gegangen von Mitzrayim zum Har Sinai mit Kabel sein die Torah, haben sie gehabt auf den Weg 2 Melchames, die Melchame mit den Parein und die Melchame mit Amalek. When the Yidden left Mitzrayim to go to receive the Torah, they had 2 wars. The war with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and the war with Amalek, the arch nemesis of the Jewish people. In Heintike Seder erzählt die Torah wegen dem Ansog von Hashem Yisborach, wie die Jiden sollen sich führen bei beider Melchames. And in this week's Parsha, Parshas Beshalach, Torah tells us how Hashem told the Yidden how to conduct themselves in both of these wars. Bei Melchames Parei is gewend der Zivui Hashem Yelochem Lochem v'yatem Tacharishon. Gott wird für euch Melchame halten und ihr sollt schweigen. Regarding the war with Parei, Hashem says, Hashem will fight your battles and you shall be silent. Silence. Schweig. Und bei Melchames Amalek, however, whereas when it comes to the war with Amalek, it says, say, Hilachim ba'Amalek, go out and fight with Amalek. Ge'erois halt Melchama mit Amalekin. Was meint euch Melchama poshut in Gashmias, which means literally, physically fighting. Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm going to have to turn the page myself. Let me see if I get this right. Yeah, I did. Amazing. Proud of myself. Okay. Yisrael's getting salt right now. That's why I'm advancing the pages. Der Chilok von die 2 Melchames is. What's the difference between these 2 wars? Okay? These 2 wars both took place when the Yidden were coming out of Mitzrayim, before they received the Torah. But with Parei, Hashem said, you guys sit there and watch. I'll take care of it. With Amalek, Hashem said, you guys get in there and fight. So what's the difference between these 2 wars? We're on the top of page 145. Parei is gewen hinter die Juden. Parei was behind the Jews. He was chasing them. Is nicht gestanden zwischen die Juden und dem Berg Sinai, nur zwischen die Juden mit dem Hadoga Shenoicha b'Mitzrayim, mit dem V'ichlu es Chela va'aretz. Parei was not standing between the Jews and Mount Sinai. He was standing between them and where they came from, which is the Rebbe is invoking here the verses, the fish which we ate in Egypt, when the Yidden later on were nostalgizing about Mitzrayim. Oh, it wasn't so bad. Remember we had all that fish? And they ate from the fat of the land. So, Goshen was had ample sustenance. Anyway, so Pharaoh was not standing between the Jews and Mount Sinai. Pharaoh was standing between them and Egypt, which, from the verses that Rebbe is quoting here, we're invoking the idea that there was still, God forbid, a romanticization of slavery, that the Yidden had just left Mitzrayim and they still sort of, even though it was horrific, they were sort of drawn to it. Pharaoh hat geschrien, als wird nicht zulassen zum Tuv Eretz Mitzrayim, seiden als men wird während seine Pharaohs avodim. Aber zwischen Yidden und Matan Torah ist nicht gestanden. Pharaoh declared that the Yidden could only enjoy the abundance of Mitzrayim if they remained his slaves. But he wasn't getting between them and Matan Torah. Der Far is given in them, der Seide Hashem Yelachem Lachem V'atem Techrishim. Therefore, the response to that was, you, the Jews, sit this one out, and I, Hashem, will fight for you. Okay, you understand? Pharaoh's danger was he was between the Jews and reverting back to the comforts of slavery. He was not standing between them and their destiny of receiving Torah at Har Sinai. Dagegen, in contrast, Amalek is gestanden zwischen die Jiden mit dem Berg Sinai. Amalek was standing between the Jews and Mount Sinai. Und da hat sich nicht gehandelt wegen an Eretz Teva Rechava nor wegen a Midbar. And then we're not talking about an ample land of sustenance like Egypt, but rather we're talking about a wilderness where nothing grows. Wie der Rizal sagen in Medrash Tanchuma, as die Torah is gegeben geworden, darf in a Midbar, like the sages say in Medrash Tanchuma, that Torah was specifically given of all places, was specifically given in a wilderness. Und hat nicht gelassen die Jiden gehen mekabel sein Torah, and Amalek was not allowing the Jews to go advance further in the wilderness and receive the Torah. And therefore, the response was quite different, was the opposite, in fact. B'shas, es ist da menea makiv, asterer, und abhalter zu Kabbalas HaTorah, when there is an obstacle or something that is preventing our progress toward receiving the Torah, is a gama koil yankiv yadayim yidei Esav. Even though normally we say, this is what Yitzchak said when Yankiv came to get Esav's brachas. He said, interesting. Hakoil yankiv yadayim yidei Esav. The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands, he felt his hands and he felt the fur. He tied the goatskin on his forearms, like his mother Rivka advised him. But the hands are the hands of Esau. So we usually say, Hakoil yankiv, that the weapon of the Jewish people is the voice of Torah, the voice of prayer. And Esav, which represents Western civilization, their main tool is aggression, is militarism. So even though we say normally that the Jewish weapon is prayer and Torah study and not actual fighting wars, Yadayim zayin shach to Esav, we say that hands, meaning physical fighting, is more of an Esav thing, not a Yankov thing. Das is ein chelik, that belongs to him, to Esav. Wie steht v'al charbecha tichya, like it also says, you will live by the sword. Esav will live by the sword. Wie bald aber es is do asterer zu Kabbalas HaTorah. However, here's the exception. There's something that's preventing our way to get to receiving the Torah. Rechnet men sich nit mit keine cheshbeines, so then we set aside all calculations, and men geht auf alle Wegen und in alle Efanim. We go any direction. We do any manner of whatever we have to do by any means necessary. Abi men soll nor mekabel sein die Torah und vereineken sich mit ihr. Whatever it takes in order that we should go be able to receive the Torah and unite ourselves with it. Und das ist der Tam. And this is the reason. We're at the very bottom of the column. See? Und das ist der Tam. Was men hat Milchama gehalten mit Amalek in Pashat and Gashmias. That's why we fought Amalek, literally, physically, as es nicht gewähnt, kein Inyan von Keichweizem Yadi, nor as es gewähnt in Inyan von Milchemes Hashem, Milchama Hashem, was ein Hashem Shalem ve ein Hakise Shalem ad Shemacha Zare Shalom Amalek, dem Eibischtens Namen, und sein Stuhl, seine nicht ganz bis wannet es wollen abgemeckt werden, die Kinder von Amalekin. This was not a concept of Keichivetzim Yadi, of feeling like our human efforts are all that matters. God forbid, that's not what it was. It was actually the opposite. Our going out to war was because this is Hashem's war. This is for Hashem's sake. And like it says, that Hashem's name and his throne will not be complete until the descendants of Amalek are obliterated. So we had a very different response to Parai than to Amalek. Parai was getting in between us, reverting to what we considered to be physical comfort, even though it was horrific, but, relatively, I guess, when you're in distress, you start to idealize those types of situations. People always want to go back to the place where they were traumatized. I mean, I don't want to say they always constantly want it. I'm saying inevitably at some point, that's the comfort zone. You feel like you want to go back there. And they were in this mode where like they wanted to go back there. So anything that's between you and that, Hashem says, you know what, you guys sit this one out, I'll take care of it. You don't have to fight this. But if there's something, that was Parai. But if there's something like Amalek that's between you and your spiritual destiny, going and receiving the Torah and becoming one with it, guys, you're going to have to fight this one as well. Come along and lend a hand and be involved. Okay. Yud Aleph. In the middle of the second column on page 145. Yud Aleph. Mitzad dem was die Milchama mit Amalekin is given zu lib Kabbalas HaTorah, because the purpose of the battle with Amalek was for the sake of receiving Torah. Derfar is die Milchama mit alle ihre Pratim given verbunden mit Moshe Rabbeinu der welche Kibel Torah Sinai. So therefore the war was connected with Moshe, because Moshe was the one who received Torah at Sinai. Right? Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, it's the beginning of Pirkei Avos. Moshe received the Torah at Mount Sinai. So the purpose of fighting Amalek was in order to get to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. So Moshe, who's the one who received the Torah at Mount Sinai, had to be involved in the war. Die Milchama hat gestammt von Moshe. Moshe hat gesagt, Bechar goime v'tzei yilachim b'Amalek. The battle actually came from Moshe. Moshe was the one. What's going on here? What the heck was that? Shoot. Yisrael, if you're listening, somebody just called your WhatsApp on your laptop and it knocked. Okay. It knocked everything out. Please, nobody call Yisrael's laptop, please. If you're listening to this, please do not call Yisrael's WhatsApp. Yisrael, how do I... Did you get the salt? Yisrael, get the salt and come back. Thank you. Okay. I was in the middle of saying that when it came to the war with Amalek, Moshe was the one who was in charge, and he was the one where Hashem told him, choose men and go out and fight. Die Milchama hat sich angeheben mit der Tefillah von Moshe, gefährt sich durch Anshe Moshe. The war started with Moshe praying. It was then carried out through Moshe's men. Wie steht in Chassidus auf dem Pasuk, B'charolanu anashim Anshe Moshe, und der Netzachen ist gekommen durch Yeshua Misharas Moshe. Like Chassidus explains, choose men for us. meaning these were Moshe's men, people who are identified with Moshe, and the victory came about through Yeshua, who was certainly identified with Moshe. Yeshua was the faithful servant of Moshe. So the whole war with Amalek has to do with Moshe. Okay. We're on Ois Yud Beis. See where we are? Second column, 145, toward the bottom. Ois Yud Beis. Den Netzachim. I'm managing a lot of things right now. I'm going to take a little sip of coffee right now and just calm myself down. Der Netzachim. Der Netzachim von jeden Milchemes Amalek is given Hecher von Tava. Okay. The victory the Yidden had over Amalek was supernatural. Alpi Tava volt Amalek gedarft menatzech sein. Naturally, Amalek should have won. Wie sagt in Yerushalmi as Amalek Kashvan Haya, like it says in Yerushalmi in the Jerusalem Talmud, that Amalek was a sorcerer, meaning they were a nation that was skilled in sorcery. Und hat ausgeklimmen, as elche Menschen was darfen alpi seder teva leben, and they knew through their sorcery how to pick men to fight who were likely to survive. Und they hat geschickt in Milchama, they sent those men into war. I'm not going to get into the system that they used. It's very interesting, but I feel like it would be a distraction to get into it right now. Und von deswegen hat man gewonnen. And nevertheless, the Jews won. Rabbi Shais geht auf Milchama bekeich HaTorah. Because when you're going out to fight war with the power of the Torah, wie eben der Mann wegen Anshemische, als jeder eine, welcher ist gegangen zu Milchemes Amalek, hat gewusst, als geht nicht bekeich, etzem Yadin nur in Schliches und mitten keich von Moshe, and especially in the situation where we're talking about the men who were fighting for the Yidden, were Anshe Moshe, were Moshe's men. They knew they were going out as emissaries of representatives of Moshe, with Moshe's koyach. Bishlichus bekeich HaTorah, which means Moshe, who's synonymous with Torah, means they were going out as shluchim of Torah, and with the koyach, with the power of Torah. Demolt is men menatzech l'mayla mederech hatava. Then they were able. Hold on, I should have advanced the page. Yeah. Then they were able to win in a way that transcends nature. Sorry, I forgot to advance the page. We're on page 146 now. Ois Yud Gimel. Die mitzvah von Zechiras Amalek is doch jeden Tag. The mitzvah to remember Amalek is every day. It's one of the Shesh Zechiros, one of the 6 things that we remember every day. Bemeil ist das, oi mit der Mantra ahira Anweisung, euch auf der Milchama mit Amalek Haruchni von jeden Tag. So what we just learned is also applicable to our current war against Amalek. You think Amalek is just something that happened historically? No, it's something that happens every day. We don't just remember it every day, but we have to live it to a certain extent every day. So what does it mean to fight Amalek in our day and age? A lot of people ask that nowadays. I'm not going to get into it. If you know, you know. But a lot of people wonder, what does it mean, Milchemes Amalek, in the modern day? I'm going to tell you right now what it means. Auf Amalek steht asher korcha, hat abgekillt jeden von seiner Koch und his slaves zu Kabbalas Torah. It says about Amalek, asher korcha. Asher korcha can mean a lot of things, but one of the things is it's from the word kar, which means, no, not like driving a car. Kar in Lashon Kodesh means cold, not hot. That Amalek cooled us off. He cooled our excitement. When we came out of Mitzrayim, we were all excited. We just saw the miracles of the 10 plagues and the miracles at the splitting of the sea, and we knew we were going to receive the Torah. We were all excited, and Amalek came to rain on our parade just at that moment to cool off our excitement. B'shas Yidden seien gestanden in der größte Hislavos, when the Yidden were at the height of their excitement. Azaz Slavos was hat gepeilt afilo of the Umasailam. And the excitement was contagious, so that even the non-Jewish nations were also feeling it. Wie steht der Mashal in Medrash Tanchuma von Ambati Risachas, a kochadike vane, like the Medrash says, a mashal, a parable, an allegory about a boiling hot bath. Picture a bath that was boiling hot. Alham gesehen, as das is a flam fire. Everyone saw that it's flaming hot. Demolt is gekommen Amalek of a upkilling Yidden von der Hislavos zu gehen mit Kabel sein Torah. So Amalek comes to cool off the Jews from their excitement about going to receive the Torah. The Medrash says that there was a hot bath. It was so hot nobody could get into it. And some wacko came and jumped in the hot bath. And even though he got scalded, he cooled it off for everybody else. What does it mean he cooled it off for everyone else? Physically? No. Psychologically. It's like, in a bad way, they say, like when Sir Edmund Hillary climbed Everest, scaled Everest, like it was said, no human being can do this. No one can do it. You'll die. No one can do it. He did it, and it was considered like the supernatural feat. And then next year, 10 people did it. I don't know, you'll Google the number. Or like Roger Bannister ran the first 4-minute mile. They said, you can't do it. If you do it, you'll die. And he did it, and then the next year, like 10 people did it. You'll Google the numbers, and you'll let me know in the chat. But the point is, there's something that seems impossible, and then someone does it, and it breaks the psychological barrier, and then other people do it. Okay, that's in a good way. But in a bad way, Amalek did this. The Yidden were at the height of their glory. They're coming out of Mitzrayim after all the miracles. They themselves are at the height of their excitement. Morale is high. They're excited to receive the Torah. And Amalek says, let me rain on this parade. Let me just ruin it. And they fought a war just for the sake. I mean, it really is the definition of terrorism. Terrorism is terror, right? It's the point of it. It's not military strategy. It's psychological strategy. It's to make people demoralized. Okay, so they said the Yidden are riding high. Everyone says that they're so hot. I'll make them cold, meaning psychologically. I'll cool it off. You can't attack them. I'll attack them and show that you can. Okay. Now, when you have something that cools you off from Torah, haben wir auf dem die Anweisung wie oben der Mund. So we have the above mentioned teaching. In other words, let me spell it out. What is Amalek in our day? Anything that cools your excitement about Torah. It's a psychological phenomenon. It's an internal phenomenon. It's a voice in your own mind that discourages and demoralizes you when you're riding high and excited about Yiddishkeit. That's Amalek. So how do you handle that? How do you respond to that? We have our teachings, how to respond to it. Aleph. As men darf nutzen allerlei Mitteln auf Milchoma halten mit dem Abi Norme Kabel sein die Torah. First of all, by any means necessary. Yeah, I know I'm quoting Malcolm X. I'm doing it on purpose. Whatever means at your disposal have to be utilized. Don't refrain from anything. Don't say, well, we're only Hakel Kol Yankiv, Yadayim days. No, when it comes to, listen, if it were fighting a pare who's standing between us and the physicality that behind us that we might revert to in a moment of weakness, then let Hashem fight that. But if we're fighting Amalek, who's coming specifically to discourage us about excitement over Yiddishkeit, then we got to use everything at our disposal to fight. Beis. Men darf wissen, als men tut das nicht bekeichen wird zum Jode mit eigenem Keach und Selbstkraft, nor bekeichen shel Moshe bekeichen Torah. We have to know that we're doing this, we're fighting this war, not with our own power. No, We're doing it with Moshe's power, which means the Torah's power. Bottom of 146, first column, Ois Yodalad. Auf in Pasuk v'yishma Yisrael. And the verse, and Yisrael heard, Zagen Rezal, Ma Shmua Shama Uva. Our sages say, what did Yisrael hear? What news did he hear? And he came. Milchemes Amalek. Specifically, Yisrael heard about the war against Amalek. Not the splitting of the sea, not the 10 plagues. No. The news of the war against Amalek. That's what got his attention. And he showed up. Die Shmua hat der erlangt euch in Midian. The news reached Midian. Und das, was Yisrael hat gesagt, atu yadaiti, and this that Yisrael said, and now I know, is given a hachana to Matan Torah, actually was a preparation for Matan Torah, via Shteten Zayar, like the Zayar says, that Yisrael's personal awakening, the completion of his personal awakening, was actually a necessary forerunner to the revelation at Har Sinai. It's explained more at length in many places in Chassidus, why that was a necessary preparation for Matan Torah. As so too now in our present day, as men vet gain milchama halten mit dem Amalek ruchni und bekeiche shel Moshe, we're fighting a spiritual Amalek, meaning the internal voices of discouraging and demoralizing apathy, and we're fighting that voice. We're fighting it with the koyach, with the power of Moshe Rabbeinu. That das peilen umatom afilo in Midian. That will have an effect that will even reach Midian. They'll hear about it in Midian. The ripple effect will reach Midian. Und das wird sein achana zu gilu v'kabbalas penimius ha-Torah. And then, just like the Yidden received Torah at Har Sinai, will receive. Now, Matan Torah will never happen again. It was a one-time event, but we'll have a new level of revelation of Torah, the revelation of Penimius Torah, which will happen, was as vet megala sein Mashiach tzidkenu b'mheira v'yameinu amen, which Mashiach will reveal the inner teachings of the Torah. They're part of Matan Torah. It's all there. It was all included, encoded in the original revelation, but it has to be unpacked, and Mashiach will come and unpack hidden layers within Torah. So, just to sum it up, we have to understand that our arch nemesis and our greatest danger today, and I want to say this to you very clearly today in 2026, January 2026, the greatest threat to the Jewish people today is, get ready, because you're not going to see this on Twitter, on X. The greatest threat to the Jewish people today is apathy, ignorance, a lack of excitement and passion about Judaism. That's the greatest danger. And it comes as an internal voice that discourages us. And that's what we have to fight by any means necessary. And we have to fight it with the koyach of Moshe, which is the koyach of Torah. And we have to know that we'll be victorious. And we have to fight it in such a way that they hear about it in Midian. That the non-Jewish world realizes that the Jewish people are fighting the good fight. We're fighting an internal battle to overcome anything that would discourage us from adherence to our holy Torah. And then, just like the Yidden went from Milchemes Amalek to Matan Torah, we will go from our victory over our own internal Amalek to the revelation of Penimius Torah, which Mashiach will reveal speedily in our day. Okay. Yisrael, are you back? Yisrael? Hey, buddy. Do you know that while I was in the middle of teaching, your WhatsApp rang on your computer and it knocked off the screen? I got it back, but it was out for like 30 seconds. Can you make sure nobody calls again? We have just a little bit left. Okay. We're on the Tu B'Shvat Sicha. You see? Okay. Oh, you back with me? You got the salt? Okay. Okay. But if I feel rushed, then it's going to take me longer because I get nervous and I make mistakes. Okay. I need a little breather here. Just a second. All right. We're on page 146, second column, Ois Tezvav, Tu B'Shvat. You see the Kaiseris, you see the little subtitle on top. It says Tu B'Shvat. Okay, so we're going to learn a little Tu B'Shvat Sicha. Tu B'Shvat is included in the Beshalach Sichos. Give me a minute to breathe over here. This is from Shabbos Parshas Beshalach and Tu B'Shvat Tavshin Tes Zayin. Okay. Apparently the snow is piling up because Yisrael said if he doesn't start driving soon back to Crown Heights, he's going to have a hard time getting home. And I don't want to keep him from home. All right. You ready? Here we go. Third Sicha of today. Right? We had two Sichas from Beshalach. First one about why the Haftarah is the Song of Devorah, because we spoke about how women suffer more from the decrees of Pharaoh, and therefore they rejoice more in the redemption. And then the second Sicha was, is that right? We had the two wars. Yeah. We just had the Sikh about the two wars, two different approaches to two different types of war. And now we have a third Sikha, which is a Tu B'Shvat Sikha. Okay. Chamish Asa B'Shvat is Rosh Hashanah Lilanes. Tu B'Shvat Igi Chag Ilanot. Tu B'Shvat Igi Chag Ilanot. Tu B'Shvat, Chamisha Asa B'Shvat, is the Rosh Hashanah of trees. I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. A tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair. A tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. You know who wrote that poem? A rest stop in New Jersey. You'll know what I mean if you ever drive in New Jersey. There's a rest stop. Joyce Kilmer rest stop in New Jersey. Yeah. Please leave a comment if you understand the references and enjoy them. Chassidishkeit is da plukta in dem Beis Shammai halten as Rosh Hashanah Lilanes is be'echad b'Shvat is da chaber Beis Shammai u Beis Hillel halachik Beis Hillel und noch mehr Beis Shammai b'makim Beis Hillel ein Mishnah. It is a matter of dispute. When is the New Year for trees? Beis Hillel says it's the 15th of Shvat. Beis Shammai says it is the 1st of Shvat. But when there is a dispute between the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel, the halacha follows the house of Hillel. And in fact, anyone who teaches the opposite as the halacha, it is considered like he completely got it wrong. Kenman zogen dem bieren dem. We could explain it like this. Mir gefinnen in etliche Erte in Shas, as Beis Shammai halten, as linen Basar Keach, wie is noch behelm, und Beis Hillel halten, as linen Basar Peil, wie Gilui, Lamashal. We find many places in Shas, meaning throughout the Talmud, that you can really reduce Beis Hillel's approach to, or first, the Rebbe says Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai's approach to koyach, potential, And Beis Hillel's approach, you could reduce it to poil, actuality, potential and actuality. For instance, chalis dvash, mei masoi, metames, honeycomb. When do they become considered able to contract or to cause something to contract? Ritual impurity, mishum mashke, because of liquid, something has to become wet to become muksher l'tumah, susceptible to the spreading of ritual impurity. So when does this happen? Beis Shammai yemrim kishiyaharher. Beis Shammai says from the very moment that you even think about it, meaning you look at the honeycomb and you say, I'm going to squeeze the honey out of there. Okay, that's it. Now you understand. All right, I don't want to get a whole thing about tumavatara, but something has to be useful in order to contract. Let's like kalim, like utensils. So something that's just like ornamental, it doesn't contract impurity. Something that's functional contracts impurity. So the honeycomb is like just part of nature, right? But if you look at it, but if it becomes like a food item, then it can contract impurity. So when does it become a functional food item and not just like a part of nature? So Beis Shammai says the minute you look at it and decide that you're going to use it that way, boom, even though you didn't do it yet, it's already considered susceptible to impurity. So that's koyach v'helam, the concept of potential and latency, hiddenness. Beis Hillel mishi yirasik. Beis Hillel says only when you actually crush it and you start to extract the honey. That's poil v'gilui, that which is actual and real and revealed. Okay, so that's one example where you see. Beis, another example. Neiris Hanukkah. The Hanukkah Meneda. This is a famous one. Beis Shammai emrim yem rishin madlik shmeina mekan me'elech pesach v'helech. Peches v'helech. Beis Shammai says you light 8 candles the first night and then you do one less every night. Beis Hillel emrim yem rishin madlik achas mekan ve'elech mesav helech. Beis Hillel says you light 1 candle the first night and then 1 more each night until you have 8 at the end. Time to Beis Shammai keneged yom hanichnasim hasidim love keich v'helem. Why does Beis Shammai say that? He says because you're counting off the potential days. On the first night, you have the most potential. You didn't use up any days yet. The time of the Beis Hillel connected Yom HaYetzim. Shiyatzu Kvar, Peil V'Gilui. Hillel says, no, you're only counting the actual days, the days you've actually had. Beis Shammai gain allemol noch der Zach wie sie ken sein, like the behaltene Keichos. Beis Hillel leiten der Zach wie sie is. And plekte hate. Beis Shammai always looks at the way things could be, potentially. Beis Hillel looks at what we have actual in a revealed sense. Right? So we have 2 examples. The honeycomb and the Hanukkah candles. In both cases, Beis Shammai is looking at what will be or could be, the potential that has yet to be realized. Beis Hillel says, no, we look at what is actually happening. Der Shedershinian is Beis Shammai Shoshim Bechinas Hagvoris Vavedosim Bederech Allah Bechinas Halam. Now you can break this down to the difference between Gvura and Chesed. Beis Shammai is Gvura because Gvura is ascent, elevation. It wants to leave this world and go up high. Beis Hillel Shoshim Bechinas Chsadim Vavedosim Bederech Hamshacha Bechinas Giloi. Hillel Maloshin Bialoi Neidai Giloi. Beis Hillel is chesed, which comes down. Coming down meaning revelation, which Hillel is also related etymologically to the phrase bihiloi neiroi, his lamp shone forth. That's a phrase in the book of Job. Eov. You understand? So Shammai is potential or hiddenness, which is Gvura, because Gvura is like the flame that goes up and departs, leaves this physical plane. And Hillel is about actuality, what's expressed down here, which is like Chesed. Chesed is like water, which flows downward, spreads out on the lowest levels. Der Inyan, Yud Zayin. Der Inyan von Rosh Hashanah Lilanes is, so what's the concept of Rosh Hashanah Lilanes? New Year for trees. Is as die Beimer hernuf jenig sein sehr chayos von die Wasseren von abgelaufenem Jahr. Und es häupt sich an bei sehr nahe Jenike. What happens on the New Year for trees in the middle of the winter? You don't really see any activity. Trees aren't sprouting new leaves yet. I can tell you our trees in the backyard of the Solward's house, they are completely leafless right now. I pruned them right after the winter solstice because that's a time to, I'll give a tree class sometime, another time. But they are very, very leafless. They're dormant right now. Very dormant. But what's happening is on the tree New Year, whether you follow Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, what are they saying happens on their respective Rosh Hashanah Lilanes? What they're saying is that's the turning point where the tree stops deriving nurture from last year's water and starts receiving nurture from this year's water. You're going to say, well, why doesn't that happen on Rosh Hashanah? Okay, it takes a while. It takes a while to use up the old water and to be removed from that and to start using the new water. Des man was die Wasseren von neuem Jahr heuben anzugeben jenike is für Chodashim nachdem wie sie werden nidoin. Now the time when the new waters begin to give nurture to the trees is 4 months after they are judged. That's how long it takes. It takes 4 months of turnover for the old waters to stop giving nurture and for the new waters to start giving nurture. That's how long it takes. Not a botanist. Can't tell you why. It takes 4 months. Now, the question is, when are the waters judged? Because you got to count 4 months from when the water is judged, and then you'll get the New Year for trees. By the way, New Year for trees, I used to, think like, oh, this cute little thing, we're going to eat some pomegranates and make a party. But then I planted these fruit trees in the backyard of the Solward's house, and it became a real thing to me. For instance, when counting the years for Orla, the first 3 years of the fruit-bearing tree, you're not allowed to eat the fruits. So when do you count the years? Well, Chamishas B'Shvat. That's when the year is. So that's an important halachic date. No pun intended. And I don't have date trees. I have 2 different types of apple because they need cross-pollination. I have 1 type of plum, which is self-pollinating. I have a cherry tree. And I have a patio peach, which is in a pot on the patio. Come check it out. At any rate, 4 months after the water is judged, that's when the trees start to get nurture from new water, not the old water. Okay, so let's trace it back. When are the waters judged? Well, that's a good question. B'chag, chag means sukkos. Tesvav tishrei, nideinen alamayim. Und in 4 Chodashim herum, Tesvav b'Shvat, heuben sie an zu geben jenike die Beimer. The waters are judged on Sukkot, which is the 15th of Tishrei. So you count 4 months after that, and you'll get the 15th of Shvat. And that's what Beis Hillel says. The New Year for trees is the 15th of Shvat. Das, was am Eim nideiden bechag, is das der din bepeil begilui. Now, nothing can be so simple. if you're talking about waters being judged on Sukkot, yeah, that's the revealed judgment. But in potential, in the concealed way, is das be'echad b'tishrei. It actually happens on the first of Tishrei, on Rosh Hashanah. Von Rosh Hashanah, echad b'tishrei is doch nidin kol ha'olam, because on Rosh Hashanah there's a general judgment of the entire world, in potential at least. The actual judgment of water is on Sukkot, and then we have the water libation ceremony, Simchas Beis Shueva. But the potential judgment for water is when the judgment of the entire world in a general way is given, which is Yom Adin, the Day of Judgment, which is Rosh Hashanah. Und in dem is euch nichlo mayim. So when the entire world is judged, so in potential at least is included everything, including water. But in actuality, the water judgment happens on Sukkot on the 15th of Tishrei. Wie bald as die Nika von die Beimer begilui von die Naye Wasseren kommt 4 Chadoshim noch sehr din begilui, kommt eis as die Naye Yenika behelem is be'echabit b'shvat 4 Chadoshim noch in din amayim behelem. So according to Beis Shammai, since the new waters start to give nurture 4 months after they're judged, and he says you count from when they are potentially judged, meaning on the 1st of Tishrei, so you come out with the Rosh Hashanah Lilanes being on the 1st of Shvat. Der Fahr is Beis Shammai was zege noch in Keich behelem halten as be'echad b'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Lilanes, so Beis Hillel the Osli Basar Peil halten as be'Tezvav b'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Lilanes. So therefore you have that Shammai, he looks at everything in potential. So he's counting 4 months from Rosh Hashanah, and he gets the Rosh Hashanah Lilanis on the 1st of Shvat. And Hillel, who goes after actuality, he says, no, you look at when the waters are actually judged, the 15th of Tishrei, which is Sukkot, count 4 months, and you get the Rosh Hashanah Lilanis on the 15th of Shvat. Now you know. You didn't know. Now you know. Leut dem kommt eis as euch Beis Shammai sein in Meide as der Peil von Rosh Hashanah Leilanis is bechamisha as b'Shvat. And according to that, actually, there's no disagreement about what happens on Tu b'Shvat, chamisha as b'Shvat, the 15th day of Shvat. Beis Shammai will also say that's the actual turnover for the new water. But that the potential turns over 4 months from Rosh Hashanah, which is on the 1st of Shvat. Der Indian, yeah. No. Yeah. Der Indian for Rosh Hashanah Lilanis. Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin. Der Indian for Rosh Hashanah Lilanis is Fran euch in der Menschen, wie steht, ki Adam eitz asada. So how do you say it? Ki Adam eitz asada, the 8th day. Can you sing it? What? You're busy with the salt? Okay. Israel is busy salting the steps so we don't get sued. Ki Adam eitz asada, 8th day. Der Inyan von Elon is was is eisapet. Oh, so we just said a person is a tree. A person is compared to a tree. A tree is compared to a person. Der Inyan von Elon is was
I found this on the web.
No, I don't want.
Is a bit of soap. We just said a person.
Why are you saying that? I don't want that. Why did you know who just come on? That is completely crazy. And I thought I was asking about Elon Musk and salt. Get the heck out of here. My goodness. Okay. A person is compared to a tree. Der Inyan von Elon is was is Eisepedes, geht Fruchten, von welche es wachsen ist, noch dem, noch Elon is Eisepedes. A tree gives fruits, and from those fruits will grow further trees. We said it earlier. We're talking about Hakol Hayim in Offer in our first Sikha, that anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed. So what's a fruit? A fruit is something that gives fruits. What's a tree? A tree is something that gives fruits, and you plant the fruit, and then the fruit grows more trees. Blah, 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 ad infinitum. Lather, rinse, repeat. As euch darf jeder Yid sein Mashpia auf sein Zviva. So what does that mean? to be a tree that gives fruits, that creates trees that give fruits, that creates trees that give fruits. It means to be a mashpia, to be an influencer in your environment, in shul, in your synagogue, in yeshiva, in your rabbinic school, und bichlal, and wherever. Of the alle Yidden mit welche trefft sich, any Yidden that you meet, darf auf sie mashpia sein. You have to influence. Es sollen zukommen noch Yidden, that more Jews should come from it. You understand? You have to influence someone else so much that they influence the next guy. That's what it means to be tree-like. Die Brache, was man gibt them, is, as seine Netias sollen sein gemäß sei, wie allein is, wie seine Pneumios. And the bracha, the blessing you give to a tree, is that all the trees that grow from its seeds should be like it. Its pneumios, its potential. Was das, not just what it actually accomplished, but what it could have accomplished. Your children, your students should not just be whatever you've actualized, but they should have access to all of your potential. Was das is the beste bracha for an Elon. That is the greatest blessing you can give a tree. Like the sages say, the story, tree, oh tree, with what shall I bless you? That your offshoots should be like you. Not really offshoots, but trees that grow from your seed. Baim, mit was soll ich dir wünschen, als deine Pflanzungen sollen sein wie du allein. Tree, oh tree, what should I bless you with? That the trees that grow from you should be like you. Famous story in the Gemara. One sage says to the other, give me a blessing. And he says, before I bless you, let me tell you a story. A guy hung out by a tree, and after he left the tree, said, tree, I want to bless you. Should I bless you that you give good shade? You already give good shade. Should I bless you that a stream runs by you? It already runs by you. Should I bless you? You give good fruit? You give good fruit. What I'm going to bless you is that all the trees that grow from your seed should have all of the virtues that you possess. So what it meant, it was a parable. He said, listen, you already have all of the qualities that a person can have. I can't bless you with anything more. But what I can bless you is all of your students, your children, everyone you influence should possess all of those qualities as well. Okay. Mashas es wird sein, Yitiyah Secha Kamescha, is wie die Gemara, is Messiahim in Masecha Sanhedrin, nachdem wie rechnet ois kama kitzin, as Mashas es wird sein, an feichem titnu, uferichem tisu, ähnlicher Kates Megulem is das is der emes of Simon as Mashiach kommt. And when we have that fulfillment of the blessing that all of the trees that grow from you should be like you, then we have, like what the Gemara in Sanhedrin concludes, that after it lists many different signs that are precursors to Mashiach coming, it quotes a pasuk from Yechezkel, which says, sprout your branches and bear your fruit. And it says that there's no clearer sign than this of the end of the exile. It's the most definitive sign of Mashiach's arrival. Meaning when we are fully active influencers who are causing others to have all of their potentials actualized. Last paragraph. We're almost done. See? As men halt sich an Bilone de Chaye, when we hold fast to the tree of life. Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba. Hold fast to it. Hold on tight to the tree of life. What is Ilana de Chaya, the tree of life? Well, in this sense, Kved Kedushas Rabbeinu Agdeshim B'Teres HaChassidus. It means the rabbis and their teachings, their Chassidic teachings. That's called the tree of life. Tzaddik is called the tree of life. One of the reasons that tzaddik is called a tree, everyone's called a tree, but one of the reasons that tzaddik is called a tree is because the root system of a tree is as complex as what grows above the ground, but nobody sees it. So every tzaddik, really, there's what we know about the tzaddik, and then there's the greatness of the tzaddik, which is far beyond our comprehension. That's one of the reasons that tzaddiks are compared to a tree. At any rate, we have to hold on tight to the tree of life. That means to the Rebbe and the Rebbe's teachings. Und men is das mashpia euch auf a zweiten Yidden, and then you take the Rebbe's influence that the Rebbe gave to you, and the Rebbe's teachings that the Rebbe gave to you, and you transmit that to the next Jew. V'zas is nitiyai sav k'meisai, until his plantings become like him. I guess you could read that in two ways, that the Rebbe's plantings, meaning you, or means your plantings. Yeah, and then you could just keep repeating that. Scale it over and over and over. As men vet kennen zogen ru'u gedulim shegedalti. So you can say, look at what I raised, in a good way. Das is a siman of kirava ketz von der geula sida al yedem Mashiach tzedkenu. And like the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, that when we can say that, that is the surest sign of the end of our exile. And that's, like I mentioned, the Sikha from Parshas Beshalach, Chamisha Asa B'Shvat, Tavshin Tes Zayin. And that is the end of our Sikhas for today. We want to thank all those who braved the storm, drove through the snow. We want to thank Yisrael for getting the salt, for doing the shoveling. Also a reminder to buy more hot cocoa. Did we use up the hot cocoa today? Okay, so I will get some more hot cocoa. By the way, at the Soulwords house, we have coffee, we have tea, we have hot cocoa. We always have stocked. Always. But Baruch Hashem, we used up the hot cocoa today, which makes sense. A day with big snowfall, record snowfall. Of course, we got to use up the hot cocoa. We will get more hot cocoa. I'll go order that right away online as soon as we sign off. Happy New Year, trees. And Yud Shvat. Please remember, by the way, this year at least, Tuesday night, Wednesday is Yud Shvat. And please mark the day accordingly with Fabrengens. And wish everybody a good week. A week of song, Shabbos Shira, a week of Kriyas Yamsuf, a week of Hiskashrus, of Yud Shvat, a week of Chamisha Asa B'Shvat, Siyam Rambam. Siyam Rambam's coming up. I have exciting news about that. We're going to be in Pomona for Siyam Rambam. And thank you, one and all, for joining us in person and online. I'm going to end the stream in 1 second. You good, Yisrael? Yeah? Okay, we're going to end the stream.